Hi all. Today let's see the part 4 means I am continuing the series. So this is a part 4 interview question and answers for both freshers and experienced with the tech stack of Java, Spring Boot and microservices. So before getting started, please do subscribe for supporting and for uploading more such videos which will be useful for you people. And let's quickly start. So the first question here is create an array list and add below values into the list and use Java 8 to filter values which are greater than 15 and add into that final list and the input values given to us. So what they're saying, we have to create a list and we have to add the values whichever values here given, right? So we have to add that values into the list and one condition. So just we are having one list, right? So what condition and what will be the output they are asking. So we have to get the values which are greater than 15 using the Java 8 and we have to add to the final list. So these type of questions will be like mostly asked by the interviewers, like this simple questions using Java 8 streams, lambda expressions. So not only array list based on strings also there are many questions are there. So let's see for now like how we'll going to implement this question. So this is a simple class sample and the main method. And one more thing here to note is the interviewer like may not ask, like all the interviewers may not ask to write the full from import, creating class, a main method, etc. So just they want mainly their main focus will be your logic, how you are going to build it and how your thought process to approach that particular problem in order to get the solution. So here the integer, right? So data type we have to take the integer here, list of integer given input, creating object equal to arrays as list. So directly we can take this method from the arrays so that we'll have this all the input values that those are the numbers. So just I'm printing given input and the finally also they are asking to get the output and we have to add into the final list only. So again for getting the output also I'm taking the same list of integer output equal to given input. On the given input we have to do some operation, right? So we have to filter that values using the Java 8. So we can do this, we can apply the stream on the given input and directly they are given hint also for us to filter values. So directly we can use this filter method and obviously in the filter method we will be having the lambda expression taking one variable on that variable like variable is here taken as n. So n the values everything it will check the condition we have to mention here. So it should be greater than 15, right? So 15 dot and we are going to we have to collect, means we have to get all into the list, right? So directly we can collect of collectors to list. So directly it will give the output in the format of list only for us. So at last I am printing the output here. So hope this one is clear. It is a simple question and a simple solution also for this question. Just we have to stream on the given input and we have to filter. In that filter we have to mention our condition, that is a lambda expression we have to use. And again they are asking to get the output into the list only. So we are collecting and we are getting into the list. So how the output will be? See here given input is 13, 10, 26, 35 and the output which are greater than 15, right? So obviously we should get 26 and 35 in the form of the list. So like this we'll get the output. So hope this one is clear. Moving to the next one. Can we have two main methods in a single class with different parameters? This is one of the most important as well as a tricky question. So in the main method, so in our application, in our Java application, we'll be having the main method, main class will be having in that only the main method will be having where the application will start like running, right? So they are asking whether in the same class, means in a single class, can we have two main methods, that main methods with different parameters. Generally we'll give with the string argument, right, in the main method of our like a main class. So here they are asking, can we have two main methods in a single class with different parameters? So actually we call it as like method overloading, right? If you know the method overloading concept, we'll have the method name and the parameters will be the different one. So if we are having such methods, then we'll say as the method overloading. In the same way, the main method can we do in the same way? So yes, by method overloading, you can have any number of main methods in a class by method overloading. So yes, it is possible for us. But JVM calls main method which receives string array as arguments only. So this we have to clearly understand. We can have any number of main methods like with the different parameters for whatever parameters if we are having, like whether it is integer type, object, anything. So basically we'll give the string arrays as arguments. So whenever we have given that string array as arguments only, then only this JVM calls that main method. So the first answer we have to remember here is we can have two or any number of main methods in a single class with different parameters, but JVM calls main method which receives a string array as arguments only. So how it will be actually? See here in the class sample, main method 1 will be giving int I, and main method 2 we are giving string a data type string. Yes, so this is a general type, right, int string, and we are giving just only println statements under this main methods. And main method 3 here is public static void main of string array, like arguments in the format we are giving, right, a string array format. So here in this method only, if you are going to call any other methods, if you are going to do any other operations, then we'll give it here. So what if, like if you are doing in such way, whether it will give output or a compilation error or a runtime error, what it will give actually for us? Let's see the output for this. So see here, this is a sample class name. So main of 1 means it is a int, right? So just we are printing this one, main of 1. And next one, main method is main method 2 is a string we are having hi. So just it has like printed for us. So this is like a bit tricky, but it is easy to remember. We can do um, like any number of main methods we can have with the different parameters in the class, but whenever we give string array as arguments, then only JVM calls that main method, and it will run as such for us. Hope this one is clear. Moving to the next one. Explain circuit breaker pattern or its working, means Hystrix in Spring Boot. So if you are working on the Spring Boot while working dealing with the REST API calls like HTTP, HTTPS means REST API is nothing but HTTP calls only, right? So when you are dealing with the those things like REST API calls in the Spring Boot, then you may have like used this circuit breaker pattern, like mostly will be using these patterns, right, or otherwise a return mechanism, all those things like based on our requirement and based on your API, like how it is dealing. Based on that, we'll add all these patterns for our REST API call methods. So what it is actually and how it is working in Spring Boot. So let us see. Circuit breaker is a kind of wrapper of the method which is doing the service call, and it monitors the service health, and once it gets some issue, the circuit breaker trips and all further calls go to the circuit breaker fallback and finally restores automatically once the service came back. So it is a simple one. So whenever like every time the calls, every call we are making, right, a REST API call, it is need not to go successful. Sometimes network traffic will be there, sometimes server will be down, some many conditions will be there, right? So whenever we are applying this one, this circuit breaker, like it will it will monitor all the service health, whatever call we are doing, right, that to call that service health, and it will monitor. Then if it is getting some issue in between, then all the further calls means respective calls we are like will be hitting, right, that it will do fallback method. So if you are like good on understanding the fallback, that is also like we can remember in that way also. So it will fall back and it will finally restores automatically. The service came back whenever the server is upright, then it will send all the subsequent calls which are failed before. So in this way it will work when a particular microservice or resource is not responding. This pattern helps in registering the fault. So like I have told earlier, right? So whenever the server or anything resource or anything is not responding, like these type of fallback methods, like breaker circuit breaker pattern will be useful for us. So what it will do, it helps in registering the fault, switching off the communication between client and server, and restoring it back when the service is ready to serve the request. Whenever it is ready, whenever it is the server is up, then again it will start. It will ready, like it will get ready to like move all the whatever requests are there, right, which were failed. So it will be ready to serve those requests. This helps the microservice ecosystem in multiple ways. It handles the service failure and exits gracefully. It helps in reducing the overload on the service which is already stressed. So already the server is down, right? So whenever we are hitting like at the single time, any number of users can hit the same REST API, right? So whichever like the overload, it will get overload burden on that server, right? It will actually this type of pattern, it will help in reducing that overload. Okay, and it stops the spread of failure across other services. So it will stop the service then and there, and it won't spread like other multiple means will be having microservices, right? So it doesn't um, get effect to the another microservice. So in these ways this pattern will be useful in the microservice ecosystem. And how we'll implement this one? Hystrix configuration is done in 4 major steps. So we have to add the Hystrix starter and dashboard dependencies. So in my previous videos also many times I have said, right, whatever you want to do in our Spring Boot application and using the microservices architecture, all those things. So whatever we are going to use, first we have to include the dependency in our POM file. So the same thing, we have to add this starter and dashboard dependencies based on your requirement. All the dependencies we have to include in the POM file. Add at the rate enable circuit breaker annotation. So wherever we are going to apply this breaker circuit breaker pattern, right? So accordingly for that few annotations will be having, right? So on which class we have to give on which annotation, so that thing we have to be aware, and we have to add to enable this circuit breaker. We should have at the rate enable circuit breaker annotation. Then after that, this circuit breaker, it will give as the dashboard annotation. Enable Hystrix dashboard annotation. So if you are going to implement any dashboard to check all up and down service, health, everything, so some dashboard if you are going to maintain, then we have to add and enable this annotation in your application. Add annotation at the rate Hystrix command wherever the method will be there, right? All after adding dependencies and adding these annotations for the method, which method you are going to apply this pattern, on that method, on the top of the method, if you remember, if you are dealing with the REST APIs, we will annotate based on a requirement, like at the rate request mapping, or at the rate get mapping, at the rate post mapping accordingly. Like in the same way, on the top of the method, we have to add this at the rate Hystrix command annotation with the fallback method equal to the method which you are going to declare, like in the configuration, right? The same method we have to declare here. So in this way, we have to do the Hystrix configuration, and we can have this circuit breaker pattern in our Spring Boot, that is application. Hope this one is clear. Moving to the next one. Why main method is always static in Java? This is one of the most important questions for the freshers as well as the experienced people up to 4 or 5 years. This is a basic question they'll ask, and they'll expect the answer in written for sure. So like for what, like static always, why we need to add the static in the main method, we have seen, right? In the previous question also, it will be public static void main. So static we are declaring, right? So why we are always adding static in the main method in our Java? So here there is no object of the class available at the time of starting Java runtime. So while starting, obviously we do not have any object of any class will be available for us, right? In the beginning of the Java application, like that is Java runtime, and because of that we have to define the main method as static. So at the starting we do not have any object available at the it is not available. Class is not giving anything to us, it is not creating any object during the starting of this Java runtime. And so that if we are defining this main method directly as static, by doing that, why, if you are doing that, what will it happen? By doing that, JVM can load the class into the main memory and call the main method. This is the main reason why we are adding static in the main method. So JVM, what it does, the Java virtual machine, it will load the class into that main memory. After loading it, and it will call the main method for us. So if we define the main method as non-static method, if you are not doing this way, if you are not giving a static in the main method, JVM would not be able to call it, and it throws the error for us. So if you are using any IDE, just try once without giving this static in the main method, and check out the error what it is throwing for us. So this is a reason, like we are declaring the static in the main method in order uh, to do this process, JVM to load the class into the main memory, and it will call the main method for us. This is the reason we are declaring always, we are giving always static in the main method. Hope this one is also clear. Moving to the next one. What are the starter dependencies in Spring Boot? Which dependencies have you used so far? So, Spring Boot, like now we are widely using right along with the microservices architecture. Everyone is moving to Spring Boot, right? So, what are the, like, this is a basic question also we can say, which the interviewer will ask the starter dependencies in the Spring Boot, and so far which and all you have used in your project, or so far, like which you know till now. So let's see. A Spring Boot provides a number of starters that allows us to add jars in the class path. So it itself providing us, Spring Boot itself providing us the many starter dependencies to add jars in our class path. Built-in Spring Boot built-in starters make development easier and rapid. Starters are the dependency descriptors. All the starters follow a similar naming pattern. Obviously, we know, right? So, dependencies, if you observe, like where whichever we are getting from the Spring Boot, it will be having Spring hyphen boot hyphen. After that, it will start the naming after naming convention. So that starting it will be the same, spring hyphen boot hyphen. So these are the starter dependencies, right? So starter hyphen. So Hystrix means there are a lot of dependencies it is giving, right? So just mention as Hystrix here. We can also include the third party starters in our project. So if your project requiring any other dependency, starter dependency other than the Spring Boot is giving, then that also third party starter dependency also we can add in our project. But we do not need to use Spring Boot starter for including third party dependency. That time when we are using when we are going to use the third party dependencies, starter dependencies, this way is not needed to declare. And Spring Boot framework actually provides many of the application starters, like the basic thing, Spring Boot starter. It is used for code starter including auto configuration support, logging, and YAML file. And many are there, like a Spring Boot starter web for doing web applications, mail for the mail configuration, mail sending mails, web services, testing, JUnit, Mockito we are doing, right? So for the testing purpose, JDBC connection, and security for including any security to your Spring Boot application, data JPA when we are dealing with this JPA, all these things, and a few more also are there. So this thing we should be a little aware of. Moving to the next one, what are these spring beans? So this is again the basic one. Spring beans are dependency inversion, dependency injection, inversion of control. All these are the some basics about the spring which we should be aware of. So what are spring beans? These are the Java objects that form the foundation of the application. So normally we know, right? If you are doing the Java applications, obviously all will dealing in the form of objects only. So Spring Beans are nothing but like the Java objects only that form the foundation of the application. They are initialized by the Spring IOC container and created with the user's applied configuration metadata. So it will be initializing by the Spring IOC container itself, and whatever based on our user specifications, right? Whatever we are supplying the configuration, all the metadata, like in that way only it will get created, all the beans. A bean is an object that is instantiated, assembled, and otherwise managed by a Spring IOC controller. In a simple way, we can just remember in this way. It is a bean is nothing but an object that is instantiated, assembled, and otherwise managed by a Spring IOC container. And the next one, what does at the rate value annotation do? Again, this is a Spring Boot question. This is the most important one also, I can say. So at the rate value annotation. Here it is actually used to assign the default values to variables and method arguments. We can read the Spring environment variables as well as the system variables using the value annotation. It also supports Spring Expression Language SPL. It is generally used for injecting values into configuration variables. So if you have used a Spring Boot application, you would have also used this at the rate value annotation, mainly when we'll be having properties file or YAML files based on our application architecture, like how we are designing that application, right? If you are using any environment variables, means it will be we are going to make all the variables like auto configure, means dynamically, if you are something like in the future, if the client wants this value to be changed, this API this to be changed, this value, all those configuration things will make in the properties files only. If you are having 2 to 3 experienced people also while doing this application, so you would have seen in your projects, right? So all nowadays making the configurable. So during deployment, or if anything happens at any time, if you want to change then and there dynamically without building and deploying the whole application code base, everything directly, this YML files, everything we are making configurable, right? All the information will be giving in the YAML or properties files. So there we'll declare, for example, something we are dealing with the REST API, so that REST API client, so colon, if you are using the YAML file, it will be the key value pair, right? So under that we'll be having some information, so those information will obviously have to use in the classes. So where in the controller or service, wherever you want, you have to import that variables, and whatever we have declared in the properties files, we have to get into your present current class, and we have to use in the project. So at that time, if you want to make that environment variables or system variables, we have to import, we can import using this value annotation. So for example, like this way, so user ID we have mentioned in the environment where as the environment variables in the properties files. So from there, using like this way, at the rate value in this syntax we have to given using quotes and the dollar symbol using the braces, that user dot id means that value from the properties files it is taking, and this we have to assign some variable, normally in Java we will declare like this, right? Private int id or private string name, something like that. So in the same way we have to declare, on the top of that we have to add this at the rate value annotation and dollar symbol, all those things. This one user dot id, whatever you are mentioning in the properties files, all those things, in that way we have to give the same name, then it will import the value from that particular properties files. So like this way, from properties files we can import this, or otherwise in any other Pojo class or wherever it is required, right? So it can be easily done. For it is actually used for injecting the values into the configurable, this configuration variables. These variables we can use happily in our methods or class in that application. So hope this one is clear. It is also one of the important interview question. So this much only I have prepared for this video. Happy learning. Thank you so much, like you are supporting me till now, and also hoping the same support for further uploads, and please do subscribe. Bye.